How's it going, guys? Today's project is this Toro CCR 3650 single stage snowblower, and today's project is a couple of small things. Well, a couple of things anyways. You might have seen the previous video I had looking at the how to replace the primer bulb on this guy. So that's all done, and I was able to get it started, and we've got some running issues. And also I think we have a problem with the electric start. So we're going to dive into it here. I'm going to show you what I'm dealing with and see if we can fix it. Alright guys, so I got the a cable hooked up for the electric start, and I got the ignition on, a couple shots of primer. And we're going to hit the electric start and we're going to see what happens. Alright, so that's issue number one. So either the Bendix is not coming out and engaging the gear, or the gear itself is stripped. And these, I think, have quite a substantial problem with the gear stripping on these things. But the other one is the running. So since that electric start's not going to work, we're going to go ahead and pull start it, and I'm going to show you what I'm talking about as far as the running issue that it's got right now. Alright, so it's blowing smoke. Choke is on. Alright guys, so there you saw it. It runs, blows a lot of smoke until it warms up, which is a two-stroke, so it could be, you know, just the mixture of gas and oil is a little bit too rich, too much oil. The other thing though is it runs and starts on choke, and you turn the choke off, and it starts surging up and down. So that's typically a carburetor problem. And what we're going to do next is go ahead and take the carburetor off on this thing and go ahead and clean that up. I'll show you how to do that. So first thing we need to do to access the carburetor, which is up and underneath here, is take off these two 5/16 or 8mm bolts, and that should allow us access to this. Take this cover off. Usually put the choke in the center position. And here we have our carburetor. Take this little rubber gasket off. Alright guys, so there's a couple of things now that we have access to the carburetor here that we have to take off before we can actually take the whole carb off the intake. So one is a little governor spring here. Alright, so take that guy off. There's also a throttle rod here, which is connected to the throttle arm right here. So that's going to be a Z-bend. We're going to have to take off the primer line and also the fuel line. Now this one happened to come with a fuel shutoff, so I'm going to turn the fuel off before I go ahead and take the fuel line off. If yours didn't come with a fuel shutoff, then you can go ahead and just crimp the fuel line with some fuel line pliers. Okay, so I'll try and get this spring off. It might be hard to do one-handed. I got some fuel or some needle nose, long needle nose pliers. I might have to put you down, unfortunately. This is a two-handed job. Okay, so that guy's off. Next thing I'm going to do is pop off the, if I can, the primer line. Next is going to be the fuel line itself, which might still leak a little bit of fuel. Get the clamp off, and then I'll use my fuel line removal tool that I made. And if you want a link to a video on that, go ahead and click the link in the top right corner, and I'll take you to the video. It's easy to make. Alright, next thing I'm going to do is take out these two Phillips screws. Now there's going to be a bunch of gaskets and stuff, so you're going to have to sort of be careful and kind of watch where stuff is positioned as it's coming off. Alright, so like I said, this is just a Z-bend on the end of it. You don't want to have the other end fall off because it's underneath this shroud here, and that would be a big pain in the butt. So you're going to want to try and turn it 90 degrees, take it off, but leave tension on in this direction on this rod so it doesn't fall off on the other end. And we'll just leave it there like that. Sometimes your gaskets and stuff will come off, so just again remember how they go back on. And now we can clean this carburetor. I'm going to take you over to the bench, show you how to do that. Alright guys, so I got you over on my bench here. Just going to take the screws all the way out. So what I'm going to do here is try and blow off all this junk and stuff that's on the top outside of this carburetor before I start opening it up, so I don't want any of that junk to kind of fall in. And I'm not sure I think this is I see a whole bunch of brass colored bits here, and a chunk of brass just came off, and you know what I suspect this is probably from the teeth of the starter. That would be my guess. I don't know how it's making all the way up there, but anyways, I'm going to blow this off, try and clean it up a little bit, and then I'll get into the inner workings of this thing. Alright, so let's dive into the carburetor here. To get in, you're looking at 4 Phillips screws. So it's got some blue color. That's a good sign. It means the last owner knew enough to put some two-stroke oil in with the mix with the fuel. You wouldn't believe how many people try and put straight gas. Now, in the bottom of this bowl, there's just a tad bit of sediment, but that's a collection area for sediment, so that's not that big of a deal. We have a screen here for a filter. A little bit of gunk on there. We'll clean that up. Okay, we got a float. And under this float we have a needle and seat. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to test the needle and seat right off the bat here, just to make sure we don't have any leaky needle and seat issues. So I'm going to hook up to the fuel line, or the fuel input, a pressure gauge or pressure instrument with a gauge on it. I'm going to try and pressurize it. And with the needle and seat closed, the pressure is staying the same. So the needle and seat are good. I don't have to replace those. I'm going to focus my attention here on the main jet. And I don't think this one doesn't look like it has, it looks like it might have an idle jet in here, but it doesn't look like it's accessible. So I'm just going to worry about this main jet. So there's a little jet, tiny jet inside of this big housing. So you need a little screwdriver to get that main jet out. So this actually doesn't look too bad, which is what I was hoping was going to be our issue. So now I'm going to take this big emulsion tube out with a large flathead screwdriver. A bigger one. And check that the emulsion tube is nice and clear. And I would usually see more often you'd get issues on the main jet clogging, not the emulsion tube, just because the main jet hole is a little bit smaller typically than the emulsion tube holes. So this one happens to have a little brass gasket as well, or O-ring. So yeah, I think we got some issues in this emulsion tube. It looks kind of dirty. You can see there's some sediment on there. So what I'm going to do is clean all this out with some carb spray in here, all the little passageways that I can find. 2 here, 1, 2. Clean all this out with some carb spray, and then we're going to go ahead and reassemble it. Alright, so those little holes I'm talking about, there's one right there. You can kind of see there's 1, 2, 3 right here. These are the holes that I'm going to go ahead and spray with some carb spray. Now you also want to spray down the center of the tube as well, because there's a passageway from top all the way to the bottom. Just make sure that's nice and clean. So that's where your main jet feeds into. I'm going to go ahead and clean that out as well. Make sure that's nice and clean, which it is. And then I'm going to shoot into all these little passageways that I can find. Shoot down here. spray in the primer line there. Alright, now I'm just going to spray some compressed air on this guy. I'm going to spray off this screen, make sure it's not clogged. Alright, now I'm going to hit all this with some compressed air. And we'll put her back together. Alright guys, so I put the emulsion tube back in. Just tightening her down now. Not too tight, it's just plastic, guys. There you go, just snug. Get this little jet in there next. Same thing, just snug. Just till you start to feel some resistance. It's just brass, you don't want to strip it and over tighten it. Okay. Next thing, screen back on. Nice clean bowl back on. Make sure the gasket lines up. Not sure if you saw that, but the gasket stayed on, so no need to take that off. If it's stuck to one side or the other, just leave it. It's fine. You tighten these guys down in a crisscross pattern. Alright. Now she's ready to go back on the machine. Just want to take a little bit larger sample of the fuel. Make sure we got a nice good flow of fuel. If there wasn't a good flow, then you can say that the fuel line, the fuel shutoff, or the fuel filter up in this area right here would be bad. So that fuel looks pretty good. A little bit of blue color to it. So that's it. Go ahead and put the that little rubber gasket on, and then we can put the shroud on. But while I'm up here, I'm going to also take a quick peek at the starter as well and see if I can troubleshoot what's going on there. I do suspect though that the starter gear is worn down, which is going to be cost prohibitive for me to fix and try and resell this thing. So alright, so I got it flipped up again here. To access where the starter is, just kind of pull down on these two little flap things here, and there's your starter right there. Alright, so right down here, there's your starter, and the gear is going to be at the end of this guy. I'm not sure if we're going to be able to get a good enough look here. I don't know if you can see that, but that gear, which is right where I'm shining the light on right there, is all tore up. So to fix this, you'd have to take the whole starter off, which would basically require, well, there's one bolt, easy access right there, but there's another bolt on the other side. To get at the other one, you'd have to go in through the top and take off this top panel, right? The top red panel, the top black panel, like we did on the last video, and to access down on the back side of that starter to get to the other bolt. And then once you got that out, get the starter out, then you'd have to buy a replacement kit for that. That's in Canada, it's $75 to $100, and I'm just not going to get that kind of money back out of this machine, so it doesn't make sense. I'll sell it as a non-electric start machine. But anyways, guys, I'll put this bad boy down and see if our carb kit, our carb clean, helped out with our running on choke issue. Alright guys, so I got her all put back together. I just didn't put the cover back on just yet. I got the fuel turned on. I'm going to put the choke on. Put the key on. Give her a couple shots of prime. And let's see if we can get this thing fired up and see how it runs. So there you have it, guys. Clean carburetor. She's running pretty good now. Does still smoke some. I don't know if someone used some really rich oil mixtures in the past, or if this is just getting old and it's got a little bit of blow-by on the rings. It's a possibility. So yeah, I might might put some seafoam in her, see if we can clean that up a little bit. But other than that, guys, I think she's a running machine, and hopefully I can sell this one before the winter's end. And if you enjoyed the content, guys, go ahead and hit the thumbs up and the like button there and the subscribe button. It really helps me out on the channel. And until the next project, take care.